In today's video, I'm going to be talking about practical differences between different nail files. So nail files can be made of different materials, and we have glass here, we have wood boards, we have other wood boards, we have boards that have a bit of a sponge in between, different materials. These are pretty classic. And also the diamond files that we carry, and also a sponge file. And why not? I'll show you the buffer too, and I'll explain what it does and what the differences are and why I use this one at work as opposed to this one. Okay, so let's look at first at the very popular glass files. So what I'm going to do is I have 5 nails here that are very long that have been bothering me now, and I'm going to file them. So if you are sensitive to the sound of files, I'm really sorry, because sadly the camera picks up the sound and it makes it even more annoying than it is in real life. All right, so the glass files, and so each file I'm going to give you my opinion and the pros and cons of each file, because I don't think there's such a thing as the best file out there. All files have pros and cons. So let's just look at the glass nail files first, and I'll tell you what I like about them, what I don't like about them. Okay, so they come in a variety of different shapes and sizes. And here I have 2 that one has the same grit on both sides, which is very fine. And then this one has a grit that's a little bit more coarse, and this one again is fine. These files are very often marketed as crystal files, but this is more of a marketing term. They are tempered glass, and the best quality files are made in Czech Republic, apparently. That's where these ones are from. So the good thing about these files is that they can be washed, they can be disinfected, they can be sterilized as well. Another good thing is that the edges are very smooth and they won't cut. These files are very often marketed as better than other files because apparently they seal the free edge. I don't really see how the file could seal the free edge, but they do give you a very smooth surface for sure. So I explained the pros, and I'm going to explain the cons. So I really wanted to love these files, and I really wanted to use them in the salon, and I found that after a while they're very difficult to clean. So this one was cleaned with a brush and soap and water, and you can see that there was just almost like a residue. So it's just that they don't look very clean. So this is a little bit of a rust from the autoclave. And yeah, so when they're used, as you can see, even this one has been washed. I'm not sure if, yeah, I can see it here. It just has that weird residue. This point is extremely sharp, so be very careful. And another thing that bothers a lot of people is the sound that these files make. But I think I found a way around it. So I find that because I'm used to working with clients and I'm fast at what I do, or I want to be fast, although I don't think I work roughly, nobody complains about that. I think I put more pressure on the files, and when you put a lot of pressure and you go back and forth, they tend to like almost, can you see, like skip. So this is a horrible sound, like nails on chalkboard, but I found, and I think this is why, when you go one way, it doesn't make the same sound. Filing both ways is absolutely acceptable. It's just that, I don't know, I think maybe the companies that make these files they started saying that filing in both direction is somehow damaging to the nails. It's not. The grit is what matters. So if you're filing with a very soft grit or very high grit, it's not going to tear the nail or anything. So as you can see, I can file both ways, but when I hold the nail very taut, it doesn't make that sound, but when the nail is more loose, it makes that sound. So, you know, be aware. So you can file both ways. So you can file one way towards the middle if you want to. But you can also file both ways. But yes, with these files, it makes a funny sound. Now this big file has same surface on both ends, on both sides, and this one has one side that is rougher. This one I really like because you can shorten the nail pretty quickly. I'm just going to move this way. This is how I file my nails. You can put a little bit more pressure and you don't get that skipping sound. Although, I don't know, maybe you do a little bit, but not so bad. So let's feel the surface or the edge. So the edge is very sharp. So it's smooth here, but it's also very sharp. So it's very square because these files have no give. It's solid glass, right? So they are going to give you a smooth edge, but very sharp edge. So after filing with this side, I would suggest to smooth the nail with the other side. You see, it skips. I can feel it. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that these files come in different thicknesses. So I think they can range between 3 and 4 millimeters. So this one is the thinnest. This is the 3, and this is possibly 3. And I also have one that possibly is thinner. But the thinner files can break, easier. So you have to be careful. And I have broken a file. So yeah, this one is thicker. Can you see? Here, hold on. Yeah, this one is thicker. And this one is even thicker. So I think we have here 2, 3, and 4 possibly. This might be the same thickness. I think these two are the same thickness. Yeah, they are. Okay, so another thing that I wanted to mention with these files is that the edges are very rounded, but if you want to get into the corners, sometimes when you're doing a pedicure, this could be a little bit problematic because they are so thick. But another good thing about these files is that if you are diabetic or if you have a very sensitive skin, this could be a benefit because you don't have to worry about cutting yourself. Okay, let's move on to the diamond file. So the diamond file is, this particular one is very thin, extremely thin actually, and quite flexible. It has two sides, so this one is like a medium and this one is extra fine. I prefer to actually use the medium side, and then when I'm finished, I smooth the free edge with a sponge file, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. So this file also doesn't have a give, but it has give this way. So it's actually useful when you're doing a pedicure, especially because it's so small. When you're doing, when you're doing a pedicure, you're not hitting the other toes when you're working with it. So let's file, let's say this nail. So with the extra fine side, this side might be good for people that have very thin nails. Or if they just have to perfect the shape, it's quite effective. But if you have quite a lot of nail that you want to shorten, then I would suggest using the medium side. So then you can put some pressure, go side to side. Honestly, it really doesn't matter how you file. If you want to file one way, then you can file one way. Sometimes actually when I'm filing my nails, I find myself that I do that. It's just easier for me to shape that nail, but it doesn't make it any better for the nail. I'm trying to compare how the nail feels. This one feels a little bit smoother. This one feels a little bit, the edge is very sharp. So it's smooth here, but the edge is very sharp. So what you often see me doing is this. So I don't put the file here. I put the file on the, like 45-degree angle, and I bevel the nail very quickly, and now it's better. So this is why I do that. So this is pretty good. Actually, I find this now a little bit smoother than the glass file, but with the glass file, you can also bevel it. So when you can do this, and you can bevel the nail. Yeah, pretty smooth. Okay, so the diamond file, also what I like the diamond file for is sometimes when you have that hard piece of skin that it just drives you absolutely crazy around the edges. I don't recommend cutting it because it makes it worse. You can place that file and just very gently smooth it. So this is not to remove dry skin or anything like that. Dry skin has to be cared for to improve. But you can very gently just smooth that area so it doesn't bother you, so you don't pick. If you never pick at those sides, then don't worry, you don't have to do anything special. It's not like it's a proper part of manicure to go over these sides. It's just I do that because I'm a picker. All right, so the diamond file is covered. They also come in different thicknesses. This is, I think, from Erica. This was a fine, I believe, finish. This one is much thicker and much bigger. These are, I would say, professional nail files. They last for years. You've seen me use these files a lot on my channel, but they are expensive. They're not cheap. They're over $30, I believe, at least 36 or something. But for professional use, they are absolutely excellent. I do like the little files now a little bit more because they fit into the autoclave a little bit better, so they don't take up a lot of room. But I think actually Erica is making a small files like that as well. So if you're in the US and you want to check it out, definitely they have very good quality tools. Okay, so this one is going to file the same as the other one, as you can see. Yeah, and the finish, if you bevel it, is going to be pretty smooth. Okay, on to the next. Let's look at these different files. So these are the files that we make. These are wood boards, and the reason why I like them is because they are flexible, but they're quite stiff and they're very thin. So if I'm not working with a diamond file, and very often I would give these files to the client. So this is something very nice that we can provide for clients, because these ones are not, you're not able to disinfect them and sterilize them because they are wood boards, so you can't even wash them really. So they are one-time use only in the salon because we have to sterilize or disinfect to a high level. So this is when I would use these files instead of sometimes the diamond file, so I can give it to people. And I actually do that on a regular basis. Like once in a while, I just start using these files, because when people come in for manicures on a regular basis, they don't need them every time, I would say, but it's nice to give them like once every couple of months. I start using these files just to give to clients. They have two different sides, and this is 180 and 240 grit. And the 240 grit is actually this one. This is 180. But sometimes the material that these files are made of dictates how they feel. So this side, it's softer because the material of the file is softer, but not necessarily that the grit is higher. And this is going to feel much more sharp on the nails, but it's still not going to feel as sharp as this one. So these files are the sharpest files, the black files. In my opinion, honestly, you can use them to shorten the nails, especially when the nails are longer and you have a lot to shorten. Now, the grit is basically the amount of little grit pieces in 1 inch. So if you take 1 inch and you count, if you're able, here you're gonna have 100, and this is probably 240. Yeah, this is 240 grit. So this is going to have 240 little grits. This is going to have as well 240 grits, these little pieces. This is 180. Okay, this is quite sharp. This is very sharp. This is, I think, 100. Yes, 100. This is 180. So this is usually used to remove product from the nails. So acrylic or gel, when you're working with artificial product on the nails, you need something sharper because you don't want to be buffing the nails forever. Or if you're filing very long nails, you can start with this one and then finish with this one. And then just like with wood, you know, and then finish with the buffer block. We also have these files. These are, they're good, but they are quite flimsy, but they're good as well. I'm not a huge fan of this side. It just feels a little odd. But other than that, I just find that they're maybe a little bit too small, but not bad. So let's just shorten with the lowest grit. So this is 100. Okay, so I'm going to hold my nail this way, and you can probably hear it. Don't worry, I'm not tearing my nail. I have strong nails. So this is going to be quite harsh and, well, quite quick. You are going to be able to shorten this nail, and the nail is going to feel a little rough because, again, you have very few of these little grits, so they're going to make, like, just like if you were filing the wood, you're going to have scratches, right? That's exactly. So after you filed the nail short, you can perfect the shape with the other side. You can switch to the other side, and you can then perfect the shape. Okay. So do I feel that this nail is very scratched on the end? Not really, because I finished with this side, and I can also bevel it a little bit. It feels a little rough. This is 180 grit as opposed to the 240 that we used earlier, but it's not too bad. Okay, let's move on to the files that we carry. So normally, again, it depends on the nails. Normally, I don't know, it's preference. I use this side. So if you guys are using my files, let me know which side you use the most. I'm curious if it's the white side or if this is the beige side. So I'm going to use this side and shorten the nail. Yeah, this one cuts pretty well. So if you're filing your nails, what you can do is, instead of just holding that nail in the air and the nail just wiggles, then you can try to hold the nail really taut, and then you can file both ways, and it's not going to make that terrible sound. Okay. Again, it feels pretty smooth on the end, but sharp. Here, the edge is sharp, so you can bevel it a little bit, and you're going to be fine. Okay, let's shorten it a little bit more with this side. So now, again, this is actually a lower grit, so it's sharper, but the material is softer. So the bottom line is, use whatever feels good on your nails. And nails are not the same. Everyone has different nails. Everyone has different needs. Some people use them for feet. Some people use them, for manicure. Some people have hard nails. Some people have soft nails. It really depends. If it feels good, it's fine. Now, if you are doing manicures for somebody else, so let's say if I have just recently, someone was mentioning that they're doing nails for their mother-in-law, I would use these files, because especially if you're doing feet, and if you don't have, or if you're doing someone's pedicure, and if you don't have autoclave, because normally I would suggest this file, but if you don't have autoclave, there is a risk that some little fungal spores can survive the alcohol soak that you might be using, and you can spread the fungal spores from one person to the other. This one would be one time or one person only file, so you don't want to be sharing these files as well, but then you can give that file to someone. This one, use it only on yourself because you can't sterilize it properly at home. If you are in a salon, I highly suggest using these files and then sanitizing them to a high level, usually with different liquids, or sterilizing them in like a real autoclave. I use autoclave now and I absolutely love it. Okay, so let's file the last nail and see if there is a big difference. So I'm just going to now just bevel it a little bit. This is what you see me do very often. I usually do it when I'm working on the clients like this. It's fine. And the last nail, let's shorten with this most harsh, I would say, file. You know what? I fell in love with these boards because of C&D. So I think it's called Kanga board, and it's made out of this material, and it's fantastic. It's also 240 grit. Sorry if I make you dizzy. If you are, these files, when they're made very well, and ours are made by a very good company that I've actually been in touch with for many, many years, they are made nice and smooth. But sometimes, you never know, sometimes an edge can end up being a little sharp. So before you start using them, what I would suggest doing is just running a board just very gently and just feeling the edge, just to be sure, because you don't want to be cutting yourself by accident. And that goes for any of these paper files, even mine. Like I said, they're nice and smooth, but just to be sure, on both sides, go over with the buffer block. Sometimes they suggest other files, that you can use other file, which you can as well. So it is a much more abrasive material, but it doesn't feel bad whatsoever, because really what matters the most is probably the grit and not really the material. The material can make a difference too, but I think the grit is the most important thing. The reason why sometimes people don't like these files is because they leave like a black little dots, spots all over the nails. Okay, so do I feel any difference? Not really. No. This might be actually the smoothest, probably. That is true. But I have a solution for this. So this is what I do. I just go over each nail with a sponge file. Because the sponge file, as you can see, it has a give. So it's going to hug the nail and give it a round, beveled, free edge. And even though the glass files, they are very smooth, they don't have any give, right? So the edge is going to be very square unless you bevel the free edge. So this is how I do it, and this is how I bevel the free edge. Just go over the nail, and this is the smoothest finish ever. And this also prevents, because sometimes if you file and there are pieces that catch, especially if your nails have tendency to peel, sometimes that can cause catching and further peeling. But if you go over the nail with the buffer, with the sponge file, this is going to be nicely beveled, and you're much less likely to have any peeling or anything like that, or any catches. Okay. Do I feel any difference? No, I don't. And I like them all. So the bottom line is, use whatever you like using and use whatever you need to use. So again, use the disposable files if you're doing somebody else's nails. If you have these files, they will last for a very long time. They can be washed in soap and water, brush, and then sterilized, or you can spray them with alcohol if you want to. Just keep them clean and let it dry. Or you can soak them for 10 minutes in like 70% alcohol. You can do the same thing with the glass files. But like I said, the surface, even though it's washed, sometimes it just does not look super clean. But you know that they're clean, so you can wash them, soap and water, dry them, spray them with alcohol, or soak them in alcohol for home use. These things you can't really, well, some of them you can. For example, these ones, it depends on how the middle of the file is made. Some of them are made with plastic. And the grit here, it's like a double-sided tape, and the water cannot penetrate. So some of the files are made to be washable, but don't confuse washable with proper disinfection. So these are good if you decide to use them on your own for yourself, then yes, you can wash them. You can probably soak them in some solution, but do you really have to, or alcohol? But this is not enough if you're working on people that and you're reusing them, because there is, you know, chances that people could have fungal infections, and these little spores are very difficult to kill. So I would not be reusing these files in the salon setting. The sponge files, you can't do that either, because they just get ruined. So what I do is, when I'm done, I just grab a brush and just brush it off. And once in a while, just replace them. Once they get, there is no timeline that I say, okay, after 3 months, you have to throw them out. No, really, it depends how often you use it. But I would say few months probably. And this is why, I mean, these ones are pretty expensive. They're very good quality. They're pretty expensive. So this is why in the salon, you often see me use these ones. These ones I get here locally from this Cuccio distributor, and I cut them into 4 pieces. So I cut them this way, and then I cut them the other way. Yes, this is how I cut them. And then I give them to the clients if they want to, or I throw them out because they can't be, I mean, they don't absorb the water necessarily, and many places will tell you that you could disinfect them, but they float in a solution, so you can't really soak them properly and ensure that they're going to be clean for the next client. It's just a little icky, no? I don't know. I wouldn't be using them on multiple clients, even if they are soaked, especially when you're doing pedicures. So this is why you see me, they're not any better, they're not any worse, they're just a little bit different. Bear in mind though, there are many different blocks, obviously. This is an example of, so this one is pretty smooth. I think this is like 280, like this one, 280 grit. The material is slightly different. This one feels a little bit softer. This is a little bit, see, I don't know. Yeah, they're both very soft. It just feels a little bit different. And this is what I recommend. Some 280, it depends on the material, because I've seen the OPI files, the sponge boards that are 180 grit, and they're also quite soft. So these ones are 180 and probably 100. So these are too sharp for that purpose. I use these when I'm soaking off gel polish, which I don't do often now, but let's say if someone wore a shellac, I know shellac doesn't need to be filed, but sometimes you just have to open up the surface, especially with their non-wipe top coat. So I would use this side to just open up the top coat, and I don't use it to file down the product, just scratch it a little bit, and then I soak it off. This side is quite harsh, and it would not be giving the nails a nice, yeah, it's a little bit scratchy feeling. It doesn't feel as good. This side would be okay. Sometimes what I would do is, if I was working on a client and I was removing the shellac and I use this side, what I would do is I would grab another file and just go like this to smooth this side. And then, yes, this is much smoother, and then you can smooth the free edge with this side if you're using these type of blocks. I find though, like sometimes I find that these are not very good quality, and they tend to just like fall apart completely. But if you have them and if they're good and they leave the surface of your nail nice and smooth, then absolutely use them, don't throw them out, right? As you can see, right, actually, probably, I'm not sure if you can see it, they're kind of very easily broken. Yeah, see, it's not a very good quality sponge. I guess the material loses flexibility and it breaks. But again, just for a one-time use, why not use it? It's not an expensive thing that you have to throw up. And that's it. So in the comment section, I'm very curious which files are your favorite files and why. If you're using our files, let me know if you like the diamond file or if you like these files. I'll be honest with you, I like both of them. Sometimes I reach for this one, sometimes I reach for this one, sometimes I reach for this one. I guess it's a bit of a variety sometimes in life is good. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.